Welcome to Ville's Sewing Studio and Manual Baptist Skill Center. Today I'm going to demonstrate how to assemble the vest. I've already stitched the back of the seam allowance at the center back. You can use darts at the side or you can do it plain. The curve at the front, I've pinned it together. So that's how it is. Right, so you do the back, then you do the curve for the front. Alright, so I've pinned it and I now stitch it. You start your stitching from the hem up to the underarm. After that is done, you're going to remove your pins and put the shoulders together. Okay. Good. All right, so there you have your curve stitched. Okay. Remember, you have the ease over the bust. So you put your shoulders together. Next, the two shoulders. Here. Pin and then you stitch. You can baste, but pinning is a little quicker. Always double check for balance as you sew to make sure that they are the same. Alright, so I stitch my shoulder seams. So I have done the two shoulders, the back and the front together. Alright, so good. Now you would serge for neatness. But I'm just showing you the assembling. So I'll serge after. Now you pin your shoulder seams towards the seam allowances towards the back and make sure it's lying down flat. And then we're going to pin the facing on. Now it's important that when you pin your facing, especially because it's a V front, when you pin your facing, you line it up properly. Alright? So I'm going to put my facing on. Okay, make sure the shoulder is to the shoulder. And I need to show you this part of it. The seam allowance on the back and on the front must be the same. So when you're putting on your facing, we want to make sure that they stitch exactly in the fitting line there. Right, so we're going to pin it there. Once you pin that, matching, then you should be good. That means that your V, that's your V point, should match as well. Because you remember the facing was cut to the exact shape of what you're facing. Okay, you make sure all your points are matching. That's down the front, pin in place, and then that's a V at the hem, pin in place, So you pin all the points first. Turn your seam allowance here to the side, so it goes to the side. Now sometimes when you cut, you might have a little hanging. You will just have to take that off. Alright, so I pin right across the hem and to the side. And I double check and make sure that my facing is lying flat on the garment like that, all the way to the side. So we'll stitch this on before we stitch the side. Remember now that your back facing fits at the back, so we're going to put it here and make sure it's lined up properly as well. Match your center. Match your center of the facing to the center of the vest back neckline. Alright? Right side's touching. Okay, so we're pin in place. And again, you match your shoulders. So you join your shoulders together and make sure they're matching. Okay, so when you do that now, you know that everything should match accurately. You should have your facing lined up properly. Alright, you can assemble the facing on its own, but I find when you do it like this, it fits properly. You get your points matching. Alright, so this now is the other side. And you're going to do the same thing here. Match your shoulders. Okay, so when you stitch, they are lining up properly here. Alright. Now when I'm doing the V neckline, I tend to stitch from the V here up to the shoulder, because I find that you have less stretching going up than coming down. Alright, so I tend to stitch to the top. I pin that side. You can baste, remember, but I tend to pin and sew, but you can baste. Now whenever you're putting on your seam allowances for the facing, will be only 1 centimeter, because you don't want it to be too much fabric underneath when you're doing it. So I remember this panel is turned, seam allowance is turned to the outer side, toward the side. Alright, so we line up and we're going to stitch again. Okay, so I will put the shoulder seam together first. Alright, so we are going to stitch your shoulder seam on the allowance, on the facing first, before you stitch it onto the neckline. We stitch across. So we're actually joining the shoulder seam. A little movement. If you're sewing and you get any movement at all, it's important that you fix it. Pull and fix. Because if your seam allowance is not correct, then the facing will not lie flat, you see. So you make sure that if you check it and it's off, pull back and just adjust. When you sew accurately, then your garment will fit accurately. Okay, so that seems to be good now. All right, so let's see what we have. This is your facing. That's the facing, okay? So we're going to open your seam allowance here, but we kept the one on the garment turned towards the back. So I open this. In that case, it won't be so thick. All right, now remember I mentioned to you that the V at the front, this is your neckline coming down for the V here. That's your shoulder up here. I'm going to stitch here up because you have less stretching. It's 1 centimeter on the neckline. Okay, so that's going to take us now around to the center back. Remember, your center back seam should be open. Okay. So I stitch this side up, and then I will stitch from here down the front and across your V, and then right around to the side. Okay? So I'll stitch that next. Remember, when you're doing your V's, you stop and turn. Your V should be good. Okay, so we stitch right around to the side, and then you'll do the other side the same way. Remember, we're going to stitch up and across. Then we do down the hem. Takes us to the side. All right, so so here we have now the facing onto the vest. That's the back, and that's your front going down. That's the center front, and this goes around to the side, okay? Now we're going to clip the facing, the seam allowance of your facing, for it to relax when you turn it over. Now if the fabric is very thick, then you do the clip, which is this one, where you cut it, fold like this, fold it, and just clap it out like that. Okay? So what that does, it allows your facing to lie flat. If you don't do this, then your facing will not lie flat, right? If you're working on the thinner fabric, then we snip. Remember, the snip is this one. You hold it like that and just clip it like that. Just clip it so when you turn over, it will be relaxed. Now where you have the peaks, we have to get the peaks off. So here where the V's are, this point, you're going to cut the point out altogether. Like that. So you cut the point out altogether and then you clip right beside it. So when you turn over the facing onto the wrong side, you will have the point area here very soft. That's the point. See, it looks good there. All right, so you clip all around like that. I just do one set and then join your sides so I can put in the armhole facing for you. The other side will basically be the same. So you clip all the V's, all the points, clip them out. Clip all of them out like that, and then you snip along here so it is relaxed when we turn over. All right? So we're going to snip all along this seam allowance. Okay, so you clip it like that. So when we turn over now, you turn the facing over, it goes onto the wrong side and it will lie flat. Okay, see, it lies flat because you have clipped it. Now we are going to be top stitching. Now the top stitching holds the facing in place so you don't have to hem it down. When you're top stitching, this is what you do. You pin the allowance, the seam allowance, onto the facing, right? And you're going to stitch here. So when we stitch, the stitch will be holding the seam allowance onto the facing. I'll do that one for you. I'm going to start. It's necessary that when you are doing it, you go in the same direction your first stitch was done. Okay, so I put it here. Okay, there you have your top stitching. This is the wrong side, this is the right side. So when you put your facing down, you're gonna have a nice smooth finish on the right side, and then this would be the wrong side, okay? So that's your top stitching. Remember, you have to do it in the same direction that you did your first stitch. I'll stop stitch this side all together so I can put in the armhole facing, which is the other area that you need to know. top stitching at the moment, the front down. Okay, so here we have front, okay. This comes up. Right. So this is your top stitching of your facing. One side as I mentioned, so I'll be able to do the other side for you. All right, so here we have the facing on the front going down. All right, so we will now put on the, okay, there it is, nice and pretty. We're going to put on the armhole facing. Okay, remember your facing is cut to what you're facing. But before we put the armhole facing on, we're going to be stitching the side. So we're going to stitch the side. Okay. So this is the side of the vest. Now you're going to turn the hem on the front, the facing on the front of the hemline, down like that. We'll be stitching straight down. It is similar to how we stitch the facing for the jacket. Okay, so I have stitched the side. So you're going to see that's the side. And that's the front side. Take your pins out. So it will look like this. That's the side. Notice the hem, how the hem is. So you will turn the hem up like that. So you remember when we cut the vest, the facing, the hemline for the back was cut onto the back, and the facing was cut on the V so we can get the two of them to come together at the side. Right? So they would come together looking like that, smooth at the side like that. Now for the facing. Your facing is placed after you have stitched the side together. All right, so you have stitched the side together. You're going to turn your curved line down. All right. And then you would put your back facing matching. After that is done, you would put the front one on, stitch your shoulder, and then you stitch right around, okay? Just like how we did the vest front, we would now top stitch afterwards. And so I pin here, Now we need to neaten the seam allowances before we complete the vest. Okay, so that's the front of the vest. That's your neckline there. And the front, you need to press your curve so it lies flat onto the bust area here. And then you come down onto the front. And that's the finish you would have there. So that's a V. Okay, and you go around like that. Alright, good. Thanks for watching. I am Villia Walker. Remember to visit my YouTube page at Vil Sewing Studio, or you can come at Mandeville Baptist Skill Center, 1 Baptist Road. My phone number is 876-787-7241. Happy sewing.